In 2019, a journalist gave a bounty hunter $300 and a phone number, and less than an hour later, he had the exact location of a T-Mobile customer on a Google Maps screenshot. No warrants, no hacking, just $300 and a name. This wasn't even an isolated incident. A Missouri sheriff used the same kind of system to track over 200 people for years without a single warrant.
All of this is happening just to maintain your cellular connection.
This is David, chief architect at Cape. We partnered with them on this video, and you're going to hear from him throughout. Carriers were eventually fined a combined $200 million for selling location data from people like you who were just trying to use their phones.
Now, most of you, when you hear this, assume the fix might be obvious, which is to just turn off location services, use a VPN and use an encrypted messenger, or switch to other privacy-preserving technologies. And those things certainly help. We talk about them on the channel all the time, and we'll get to exactly how and where we can use those tools in the video, but they don't touch the thing that actually makes all of these attacks possible. Now, the story begins with what's actually happening behind the scenes that is so scary.
I've been making privacy content for over a decade, and this is the part that still kind of gets me. You can do everything right at the app layer, like running Signal, VPN, even a hardened phone, but then still be wide open the moment that you connect to a cell tower.
There's a lot that they see ranging from both what they collect on the business side and what's needed on the technical side. And a lot of times those are kind of intermixed with each other. A lot of times you sign up for, postpaid service, they'll collect your name, your address, social security number, sometimes if they need to run a credit check. And then there's all the things that you sort of need to run the telco itself. And there's going to be, different identifiers that go in there, most notably starting at the device. They can see your IMEI when you register, that's your equipment identifier that identifies your specific phone. They'll be able to see the service and information about your subscriber that you have, most correlated with what's called an IMSI or subscriber identifier. Those, tend to follow your SIM card, and so they can kind of tell where you are at different points in time and what services you've subscribed to. And then there's how do I get radio waves from a tower to you? And so they clearly need to know some degree of where you are so they can send it out over the right tower. Or if you're, in another country and you're roaming, what other operator do I need to send information to correspond with how I actually hand this off to someone else. There's kind of a good bit ranging from things you actually need for your service to work all the way to like, how do I productize and how do I make money off of this system?
This isn't even a theoretical exposure. T-Mobile's data breaches expose names, social security numbers, addresses, and account info for tens of millions of their customers. But that's just the identity layer. Let's actually move into the network itself. Now, every call, every SMS, every data session is logged, retained, and associated with your identity. These are called call data records. They include who you called, when and how long, which tower you are on, if you're moving between towers.
I don't know if you've ever logged into your cellular provider service portal. Sometimes you can actually see the record and content of every single message you've sent. I remember as a kid, when I found out my parents could see that, I was like, oh, maybe I should think twice about what I'm sending to my best friend across the room during school hours.
We'll discuss the best mitigations for keeping your data off of CDR soon, but there's another really devastating attack that could lead to takeovers of your banks, emails, and more just because of your carrier.
A SIM swap attack carried out in a number of ways, a lot of times handled through customer service, a lot of times through social engineering. Hit me up at my WhatsApp number, my Signal number, and I'll give you $50 for something. And they can reactivate a SIM, give you a QR code to download and go that way. Or porting someone's number from A to B if there's not protection. The carrier plays an active part based on their security principles that they follow. How readily am I willing to transfer someone's number or give someone a new SIM or deactivate their old SIM? A lot of that is control, of the cellular provider.
And this isn't just a theoretical attack. SIM swap attacks hit thousands of people globally, and the losses are in the millions, so this isn't something to mess around with.
From there, I think a lot of people have vaguely heard of cell tower tracking, but I think they really underestimate how scary it really is. It's not just what city you're in or what neighborhood you're in. With timing calculations, triangulations, and AI now being a part of this as well, the accuracy can get down to literally meters and sometimes even centimeters. This is only getting more precise over time to the point where even where you're standing in a grocery store could potentially be tracked.
We're not in the world, especially you live in a city where you have radios that are covering miles. You could have a radio that's covering just the entrance of a stadium. You could have a small cell radio that's covering a New York City block. You can really start to narrow it down even by what tower you're connected to based on the signal strength.
Now I get to explain how that $300 trick worked at the very beginning of the video. See, the carrier sold access to location aggregators. Aggregators sold to legitimate businesses like bail bondsmen. Pretty much the bounty hunter just bought that data from one of them. So the whole chain works because carriers were actually monetizing exactly the data that this section just described.
This information can be very valuable and very dangerous and put into the wrong hands. Think like, a journalist trying to tell a story who might be targeted, or a victim of domestic abuse who may be trying to escape. And there's very tangible consequences to what this looks like. Even if you kind of do your best effort, a lot of times this information passes through many systems you may or may not have control over. You connect to your network, and just during the normal attach process, you're sharing your IMSI and your IMEI. Those are shared with whatever network you're attaching to. Those are mostly static for most people, unless you're switching SIM cards and switching devices on a regular cadence. And so that can be used to track you as an individual subscriber all over the world.
Because the IMSI has to be sent in the clear in the first time as part of that process, anyone with the right equipment can actually grab that signal. And so we have these things called IMSI catchers that are deployed at protests that are used to track journalists. They're used against domestic abuse survivors. And this isn't even your carrier being malicious. It's just a flaw in the whole protocol itself that even a well-meaning carrier can't stop, and people with bad intentions can take advantage of.
Pretty early on in my time working in telecom space, I bought a cheap software-defined radio, and I did an IMSI catcher on myself, and I was able to, get that done in like an hour or a couple hours.
And now one of the scariest things out there that was even shown in a Veritasium video to hack Linus Tech Tips was SS7, the legacy signaling system still enabling interception and spoofing across the global network. Someone can just trick networks into thinking that your device is somewhere else, intercept your traffic, steal your 2FA codes to get into your bank accounts. This is fortunately becoming a little less relevant as 3G is less popular, but this is a reminder that these protocols were built entirely on trust and still underpin much of how global cellular works around the world. And if we didn't have enough things to be concerned about, even things that you try to do to make this better can still make your device fingerprintable and unique on the network. The uncomfortable truth is that when you change the operating system on your phone or you implement a new privacy and security tool, that's now a unique attribute of your specific device. That could signal to a carrier some very unique things about you and make it easier to track you across different companies.
If you want to talk about information that phones leak, it's all over the place. Everything is like death by 1,000 cuts.
These are all scary things, and here are some just quick, generic improvements that anybody can make. Use as much encrypted messaging as possible. Even blue instead of green messages on an iPhone are an improvement so that your carrier isn't handling your messages. Use a VPN on top of that so your carrier can only see that you have a data session open, not where it's going or what you're connecting to. I recommend disabling 2G and 3G on your devices, on both iPhones and Android devices. At least most of them allow you to do this. You should be aware of roaming when you visit other countries because sometimes you're connecting to older infrastructure which has less security baked into it. Also, lockdown mode on iOS and some various Android hardening actually do bake in some features to help force some of this stuff. Now, before we talk about the hard ceiling and what you can really do to help deal with this problem, I do want to be clear that MVNOs are an upgrade for a lot of people, not just for privacy, but it's less personal data at signup, there's a smaller data footprint, there's more user freedom on which devices you can use, and there are no contracts. And there are real people with real ethics who are building MVNOs, like Freely, which is built by Louis Rossmann and Nicholas Merrill. These are privacy-conscious MVNOs that are built by people with track records that I think are worth trusting, and for many people, this is a really good step. But even MVNOs are run on the same underlying infrastructure, same towers, same core protocols, same fundamental vulnerabilities. They can improve the business layer, like less data collection, better policies wherever they can, but they can't change much of that network layer.
Even with lockdown mode, even with a VPN, you've protected the data at the application layer. The whole cellular side is still left wide open.
So for over 10 years on this channel, that is where our recommendations have stopped. Use Signal, use a VPN, pick an MVNO which has better privacy guarantees, and that's the best that I could say this whole time. And it was always a bit unsatisfying because I always knew, and we always knew, that it wasn't really solving the root problem, and that's the best you could do.
I call it choosing hard mode, which is like building the network out from underneath it. And that gives you options of what to do. Even if you're on another MVNO and you're still connecting to like the underlying carrier, they're the one generating the CDRs. They still see your IMSI, they can still see your IMEI, they can still see the phone number you're calling from, and they'll store it for however long the underlying carrier wants, probably years. What does Cape get to do? We can choose to make active decisions in what data is produced. I don't want to know the information. I hope our users don't want to know that information. And so minimize compromising it and then destroying it as soon as we can. It becomes something we can do by owning the whole network.
What I like about Cape is that I can actually control the experience. So those CDRs that we talked about get deleted in 24 hours instead of sitting on servers for years. My IMSI rotates automatically every day, and there's even a button in the app that I can click to rotate it on demand, which means that the whole static identifier that makes IMSI catchers work isn't static for me anymore. They've got signaling protections built in to block the spoofing and unauthorized location queries that we already covered. I know a lot of our audience likes Graphene, which they natively support as well. And our favorite feature that Tori and I have been playing with is multi-number, which allows you to just have multiple phone numbers as all part of the same plan to help avoid all those extra VoIP services, which is a real friction point that I've had over the years.
A lot of the things that they promise still aren't externally verifiable yet, so there's still a layer of trust there, though Cape does publish a lot of technical methodology, and they have white papers, and they are trying to build other ways to make that more transparent. And they are still subject to US law enforcement. They do notify users when legally allowed, but they are a US company under US law.
So we try to do the best within the legal system while still being compliant. I said we chose hard mode. Being a network operator and being like independent comes with a lot of challenges. How do you prove to people you're not malicious? How do you prove to people, these aren't spam numbers? It's this constant uphill battle of proving your reputation, fighting for your reputation. It's tedious. It's the battle we chose. It's the battle I fight every day, and I love it.
If you're new to all of this and you haven't done anything yet, I think most people should start with Signal and a VPN. The cellular layer from there is a logical next step for your privacy stack. For most people, a privacy-respecting MVNO like Even Freely is a good starting point and a real improvement. But for anyone who wants to go deeper, Cape is the only option right now that's addressing that infrastructure layer. And if you do need even more security out of the system, they do have Obscura, not to be confused with Obscura VPN, which is designed for high-risk individuals. It's kind of like lockdown mode, and it's designed for journalists, activists, and domestic abuse survivors. Our interview talked a bit more about that, and it just overall hardens the experience even more than normal. The real lesson of this video isn't just switch to Cape. It's that privacy, I think, has to be foundational. We see this with email and how email is inherently insecure, and Proton and Tuda have come in to try to make that experience a little bit more privacy and security respecting. I think that's kind of what Cape is doing with the cellular problem that has been existing forever now.
If you want to try Cape, check it out down in the description. We have a link that'll get you 33% off for 6 months, so you can see if you like it and the control and the privacy and security that it delivers.
And even if you don't go through Cape, remember that you're not powerless and that every layer matters. You can still use Signal, you can still use a VPN, you still have carrier choice, even if it's an MVNO, and now you also understand what's happening beneath the surface so you can make a more educated decision. The point of this video isn't to be perfect, it's awareness and educating you all about this really broken system that very few people are trying to solve.
I want to give a massive thanks to Cape for partnering with us on this video. They didn't just put their name on it, they actually sat down with us for hours to make sure that all of this technical information actually held up. If you want to learn more, our full interview with David is over on Techlore Talks, which dives a lot more into not just Cape, but the overall infrastructure that everything is dependent on.
So if you want to learn more, go check out that interview on Techlore Talks. That's on the screen right there. And I'll see you next time on Techlore.